Here from GP Santa Clara. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Santa Clara. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Eduardo Sajglic, and we are all set for round 5 action. It is Pro Show, and oh boy, are we bringing the pros to you on this one. 2 high-profile teams about to clash. Perhaps the best team, Peach Garden Oath. They're kind of the consensus, though there's a few that might argue with you on that. Still, one of the best in the business, and then up against 3 full-time professional Magic players. And we're talking about guys with a lot of success at the professional Magic level as well. Frank Skarren, Seth Manfield, and Brian Braun-Duin.
Yeah, as you notice, 5 of the top 25 in action, 5 out of the maximum 6. That's actually pretty impressive.
Indeed. Look at that.
I like
Number
how
1 too.
I like how the world champion of this year is the least ranked player on his team. But yeah, so here the matchup is Seth Manfield's on blue-white control, which we saw earlier. So basically, you'll get to see it from the Thoughtseize, like Field of Ruin, Spreading Seas, actually both cards in the hand. And then, yeah, it top ends with Cryptic Command, Sphinx's Revelation, those type of cards. So it aims to win the game by disrupting mana and then going over the top. While Reed is on... When they recycle Street Wraith, you can basically tell they're on Death Shadow.
That's right. And we are, of course, on the modern portion here. Now, this is team-constructed trios, and that means that we've got a modern, a standard, and a legacy player seated on each side of the table.
Yep.
And this is modern. We like to start things off with modern in many scenarios. And it looks like Cryptic Command is the card that Reed is going to take away with his Thoughtseize.
Yeah, it was actually a really interesting turn because he fetched a basic swamp. Now, that might not look like a lot, but when you're playing against the blue-white decks and they have Field of Ruin, fetching your basic is normally a very awful action, but like that leads me to believe that Reed was not and did not know what stuff was running. Because when they use Field of Ruin on you, you need to get a basic, and the Death Shadow decks play very few basics, like 1, possibly 2. The second one usually is in the sideboard, so it's quite possible this Field of Ruin is a one-sided strip mine.
Okay.
Which is, yeah, so Seth's plan here is to mana denial Reed. It's actually that easy. Once Reed's mana is denied, then Seth can do what he wants.
And we see that Reed has played a Bloodstained Mire, has not sacrificed it yet, so there will not be an opening, at least at this point, for Seth to take down, say, a dual land of some sort. But he's just going to go ahead and settle for taking out the swamp.
Yeah.
And I say taking out, but really it's turning it into an island. It's still a mana source, but as we know, Reed doesn't play blue spells, so it's really a hit.
It's pretty close to draw a card Stone Rain, actually.
Right.
Because there's very few 2-mana spells, at least pre-board. So yeah, and Seth gets the swamp because he knows that his Field of Ruins can get the non-basics later. So this way, he's trying to cut Reed off black, because black is the most important color that Reed has access to. So if he can cut Reed off black, it's almost impossible for Reed to come back, because Seth will definitely have an answer for a Tarmogoyf that might slip by, or one Shadow, which Reed probably doesn't have here.
How big of an opening does Reed need with his black mana to make an effective board state here? Is it just one turn, or is it, like, look at this. Here's a great example. So Spreading Seas is going to hit the Overgrown Tomb here. That still leaves Reed with the ability to use Bloodstained Mire to find black. Is that enough, or is he going to need to cast multiple black
because
spells?
Reed hasn't cast Death Shadow already.
Or anything for that?
I'm not sure. But like what I mean there is, because Reed didn't cast Death Shadow, he's in an awful position. Because what you want to do against this blue-white deck, if their plan is to mana denial you, is to slip under. Because you can't slip over. Your mana is going to get destroyed over time. So you have to go under. And because Reed was not able to offer a threat, again, with the advantage bar, if we had that, Seth would already be not even at the yellow, like at the orange point. I think Seth is incredibly far ahead in this game.
Okay, well, let's see if he can keep that going. He did have Cryptic Command Thoughtseized away on turn 1, but it really has not slowed him down thus far. He's gone Spreading Seas, and of course, one of the huge advantages of Spreading Seas is that it does replace itself as well, so his hand has stayed nicely stocked on action.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Reed has done almost nothing this game. I mean, basically, he cycled Street Wraith and cast a Thoughtseize. That is not going to get the job done here against Seth, and he's giving him precious time to build up his resources and his mana. You can see Serum Visions now from Manfield.
Yeah, so one thing that Reed is doing to give himself the best chance to win, it's a very low chance in my view, but the best chance is he's not sacrificing his fetch lands until he will need them. The line here for Reed is, well, whenever I have black mana, I have to like do it in one shot because I know Seth that has Field of Ruin from the Thoughtseize, so I can't just casually get a black source. These fetch lands basically cannot be sacrificed until I'm going to use them.
I see. By the way, great stuff here from Manfield. You know, he's recognized, look, I'm under no pressure. I'm at 19 life. Reed's doing nothing. I'm going to just set up this turn. I'm going to cast myself a Serum Visions to, get a card and set up my future draws. And I'm going to play Search for Azcanta, and that's going to set me up as well.
Yeah, he doesn't need to play Field of Ruin or anything here. So, like, this is great. Once Search flips, Seth basically won because he has a Sphinx's Revelation in hand.
Okay.
So the extra mana from Search is an extra card, and then Seth just puts the game away.
Right.
The way he puts the game away is irrelevant. What matters is the game ends.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye out for that. He's 3 cards to the 7 he needs to transform the Search for Azcanta.
Yeah.
But tick-tock, right? I mean, we know how quickly that can go.
Right, and it doesn't even matter. Like Seth is just so far ahead. Like like this Overgrown Tomb is going to get Field of Ruined. So yeah, now Reed with the Death Shadow, that's his first threat.
Well, he's got a 3/3, but he's got a long way to go here with Seth sitting at 19 life.
I mean, of course, like if Seth Seth had a ton of time to draw cards. If Seth did not draw a single Path to Exile, then Reed has a chance.
Okay. Well, let's see what Seth ends up doing. It looks like perhaps another Serum Visions.
Okay. Yeah, setting up more. So, but by the way, if I'm Reed and I see my opponent keep the card on top, that's just a miserable.
Oh, you just feel so bad.
Yeah, it might be, though, that at the same time, Seth kept the card on top, I believe, last turn with Visions, does so again, so he's probably not going to bin the card. The one thing here is that Seth is probably not committing to Field of Ruin this turn if he's going to Serum Visions first, since you shuffle the card away. So if Seth was going to Field of Ruin this turn, he would destroy the Overgrown Tomb, which leads me to believe that Seth has access to Cryptic Command.
Right,
because that would be the most...
Right.
So like if I'm Reed and I look at Field of Ruin and the sequencing that Seth just made, I'm going to go, okay, my opponent probably has Cryptic Command.
Right,
so,
and that would make a lot of sense, right? Because Seth says you can do whatever you want this turn. I'm going to bounce, maybe bounce your guy and counter it or do whatever. Yeah. And then he just gets to untap and still have the option to Field of Ruin with more mana available.
Yeah, Seth here, he's
There's that Path to Exile that you mentioned a minute ago. You said if he hadn't found any copies of it, maybe, but he has.
Yeah, and here, like...
Are we expecting no basic here as well?
Yeah, I don't... like.
No, we just got handed the deck list. I guess
so Reed is actually playing... They always play 2 basics, it's just sometimes the Forest is in the board. The Forest is main deck for Reed. So that makes... It's incredible how just this one Forest makes Seth's job a lot harder. And I believe here Reed timed this so that he could Abrupt Decay the Search for Azcanta.
He has in fact cracked that Verdant Catacombs as well. He's going to get a Blood Crypt with it.
Yeah,
it does give him that access to Abrupt Decay here, thanks to the Overgrown Tomb that did not get killed by Field.
Yeah, Abrupt Decay doesn't really do much apart from destroying Search and Detention Sphere. So, but no, actually he cast the Grimflayer.
He's going to cast a Grimflayer here for Reed, trying to apply pressure on some level to Seth. Yeah, but having a hard time doing it.
Yeah, and while Seth kept the card on top with Serum Visions, I would be very tempted here to use the Field of Ruin to destroy the red source, which puts my 6th card in the graveyard, and then that flips the Search for Azcanta. So we're probably going to see
But you mentioned it. He did put that card back on top, right?
Yeah, but it's fine.
It's like whatever, right? You get another one.
It's not so much that. It's like normally you want to avoid it, but if Seth had Cryptic Command and wanted to give himself the option, this is the best line to give yourself the option. Because, okay, you want to keep that card, but if you're going to flip Search for Azcanta, that's just far more powerful. So it's better for Seth to do that here. Because flipping Search for Azcanta basically equates to a card because of Sphinx's Revelation, and then equates to, well, the end of the game because getting a free instant and sorcery, or even Planeswalker. The fact that like Azcanta the Second Ruin could get one of your Gideons in play is actually a big problem.
Sure.
Yeah. It also means like the cards you draw are pretty immune to discard since you can do them at Reed's end step and then Reed can't do anything about it. You just
So Seth is going to be pretty happy here because he's going to win this game eventually. He's going to be feeling quite confident about that.
Yeah.
And he needs to because Owen Turtenwald and William Huey-Jensen both took down their game ones from Seth's teammates. So they're probably both looking at Seth, who's in the middle seat, like, hey, Seth, how's it going over there? Because I just lost my game.
Yeah.
And he can now confidently look at them and say, I'm doing pretty well. I think this one's going to work out well for me. So.
Yeah, it was quite funny. I think Reed also lost this morning in round 1, and his teammates took care of the business.
All right.
But that's why these team tournaments are so powerful for players like, either of these teams, to be honest.
Sure.
Seth logic nodding because might as well.
Yep, but he's going to logic knot the Inquisition of Kozilek just to protect his hand.
Yeah, well, Reed can just take the logic nod, right? So just protects it may not even protect the spell Seth cares about, but it just might as well do it.
He's going to lose it anyway.
He does lose a few cards, but not a big cost here.
Back over to Reed Duke. He draws his card for the turn, and it's a Mishra's Bauble, not really what he wants to see at this point.
I'm not actually sure what Reed really wants to see. Like, I'm trying to think of a sequence of cards.
Threat. It's just not really how this deck works. So.
Yeah.
There's a Traverse to Ulvenwald now for Reed, so that does allow him to go search up a threat.
Yes.
Did he have Delirium before the
bauble?
Yeah. I'm curious.
Normally these decks do get there, but
I would assume so, but I wonder if
actually, creature, land, and sorcery. So no, that
way,
bauble was necessary.
How about Sphinx's Revelation for 5?
Yeah, you can change the text on Sphinx's Revelation to you
win target game
for
5?
It doesn't target, so it just says you win game.
But we're changing the text, Eduardo. I can change it to win target game if you let me change the text.
Fair enough, yes. But this game is virtually over.
This one's... Reed knows it, Seth knows it.
I mean, if you want me to construct a scenario for Reed, he could... Seth has to have nothing. And then Reed has to top deck a way to get his last red source. And then cast Temur Battle Rage while Seth has nothing. No, we're done.
Right. and this one's just over. Now, we've now got the best removal spell in the history of Magic. It is Path to Exile, where Reed doesn't even get a chance to search up a land because he's got both of them. He's going to play another Bauble.
Yeah.
And he's going to view the bad news coming. And that is actually going to be the last thing. He just wanted to get one last little peek at maybe a card he hadn't seen before from Seth Manfield, and that is game number 1 going to Seth. But we've got, unfortunately, for Seth Manfield, both of his teammates lost their first game. But right now we've got a little bit of what we call it shuffle cam, Eduardo. And this is, next time you're in the feature match area at the Pro Tour, try to, don't let this happen to us, right?
Don't
if you
shuffle.
See the other... No, you can shuffle. You should probably do that part. But if you see everybody else shuffling, shuffle really fast, Tell your opponent, hey, come on, we got to get on camera here.
Yeah, well, usually the right tournament etiquette is shuffle a lot before the game, and then when you're doing, fetch lands, make sure it's randomized, but go quicker, because ponder, fetch lands, etc., make it a lot slower. So
absolutely. So we're going to jump in on Brian Brown-Duin and William Huey-Jensen here, and this is, that's right, a Legacy. We don't get a chance to see a ton of Legacy here at the GP level, but you're going to be seeing a bit more of it this year thanks to the Team Trios format that we have. And, while we're talking about Legacy, you can't not mention Brainstorm, which is on the stack here for BBD. It's the most ubiquitous card in Legacy. It's kind of the format-defining card. I mean, this is a card that's restricted in Vintage, but you can just jam 4 of it happily in Legacy. And by the way, how about that? Search for Cont. Now, that is a card that you don't see every day, and it's really seemed to have ripples through even the latest of formats.
Yeah, so what was interesting that we might have missed here was BBD went Brainstorm end of turn, which is not actually that common as you would think.
No, it's often played in the main phase.
Right, it's often done with the shuffling in mind. However, BBD probably was going to be constrained on mana because Willie's on a combo deck in blue-red Sneak and Show. And he also has to search for a Skanta. So his sequence was to Brainstorm, put back search and the card that doesn't matter that he'll redraw, and then play search, bin the search. So he Brainstormed because it was a good time to get it out of the way, and it makes sure that he gets the value from the search for a Skanta guaranteed. So that's why he did
Makes
that
sense.
play. Yeah.
Jensen now slowly starting to set up from a big picture perspective here, Eduardo. You said that Jensen's on a combo deck. He's on Sneak and Show. What's the game plan there for people that don't watch as much Legacy as maybe you and I do?
Sure. So the main plan that he's going to go for is either play Show and Tell or Sneak Attack. So Show and Tell for free mana basically allows you to put a creature, artifact, enchantment, land. And usually your opponent's not going to have something as good as Emrakul or Gristlebrand. And Sneak Attack is another way to cheat in and
So
play.
you're trying to put in an Emrakul or Gristlebrand, and you're thinking, put in whatever the worst thing is possible you can. I'm going to have a better thing.
Well, actually, I remember a fun game I had where I put in play Humility, but that's another story. there are ways
but
to
I'm talking about from a big picture here. You're just saying we're both getting something for free, but I'm going to outclass you.
Yeah, that's the idea. And BBD can't really put something in play that would really outclass it. Jace, you can't put it in play.
No.
However, BBD does have access to Terminus, so that's a good way to actually deal with
Emrakul. Yeah,
exactly. So Show and Tell is not quite as good in this matchup, but Sneak Attack is.
Okay.
Sneak Attack is the red enchantment that for 4... hopefully we'll get it on the display soon.
Yeah, you can pay red to put a creature from your hand into play. It gets haste, and you sack it at the end.
Right. The important part here is the gains haste. So if Huey puts in a Emrakul, he gets the Annihilator 6, and that's pretty much all.
Right. He gets to hit for 15 and effectively wipe BBD's board, giving him infinite time to set up for another one.
Yes.
Of anything, basically.
Yeah. So the way this game plays out is kind of a classic combo control versus control. So both players aren't going to do much for a long time. And then at some point, Huey's going to assemble a ton of mana and the counter spells that he requires. So a combination of Pyroblast, Flusterstorms to kind of protect his combo. And then he's going to go for it, and they're going to have a little bit of a counter spell fight.
Speaking of, it looks like Jensen's going to pick a fight here. He's going to play Pyroblast, targeting the search for his Conta. It is starting to get tick-tock. He's already got 5 cards in his yard, and it's going to work. He's just going to go ahead and destroy it.
Yeah, because if you think about the plan I was talking about, like you want to jam your combo piece with a lot of protection, that means that Huey needs a few things. He needs time, because he can't just jam into BBD's Force of Wills, Flusterstorms, and also BBD plays Surgical Extraction, so that would be awful. Like if you get like your Show and Tell Surgical, that's one thing, but if you also get the Sneak Attack, then the game...
Then you really can't do much about it at that point, yeah. Do you think that there was any chance that Jensen was trying to see if BBD would actually fight him over the search for his Conta, thinking, well, maybe he's got some combo pieces in his hand, and he just says, well, I'll just Pyroblast this. I'm happy if it blows up, but if you say... Force of Will, and, they start throwing cards at it, then he can clear the way for his combo.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation. You don't mind if it gets countered. As long as you're either taking a counterspell out or taking the search. I will say, though, that he probably would have fought over to try to kill the search because it is a card that goes against his game plan.
I see.
If his game plan is to protect his combo with a bunch of counterspells, well, BBD's plan is to do the same. Play is win, but it's different. It's play is win condition and then play a bunch of counters.
Right.
So the problem is that a Scan of the Sunken Ruin allows both elements to happen. You have additional mana to play out your threats, and then you have additional mana to play out your counters, and you get additional card draw because you get to search all these.
This is getting really interesting because Jensen actually has his combo set up in hand. He has Show and Tell, and he also has a Grizzlebrand at the ready. He also has either 2 or maybe 3 copies of Spell Pierce in his hand too. But, he wants to set up. He wants to try to hit at least one more land drop before he goes off. And this could be the opening here because BBD's going to be a little short on mana after casting Monastery Mentor this turn.
What Huey needed that turn, I don't think he can go for it now. But if he had drawn in a City of Traders or Ancient Tomb, he probably would have gone for it. But the way it panned out, he can't.
Because he can.
Well, it would not work well, mostly because he only has a Spell Pierce up, and BBD had free mana up.
Yeah.
So if he forces the Show and Tell, that's basically it. He can't even use the Spell Pierce for value or anything. So, but if he had drawn one of the Soul Lands, as we call them, because they are akin to Soul Ring, then he would have been able to cast it and had free 1 blue instance to protect it.
That's right, and that's what Jensen's waiting for now. So if you're sitting in his seat, you're just trying to hit that one last mana source, or maybe even 2 more if you get lucky. In the meantime, though, his draw step was a Lightning Bolt, and that does allow him to deal with Monastery Mentor, or at least force Brian to react. And once again, Brian just refuses to fight over any of these spells because he says, if I do that, there's a delta now. Are we getting closer, or is all that untapped mana just too much?
Well,
because those Spell Pierces don't look super great.
This is actually, they don't look great here. But the really interesting aspect from BBD's side here is that he could have, if he's not doing anything, that means for me he doesn't have Brainstorm, because this would be a good spot for Brainstorm. Just make a Monk and like you can deal incidental damage. And incidental damage is good. It also tells me that he may not have a ton of
look,
counter
he's
magic.
going for it right here.
Yeah,
So and Tell goes on the stack for William Huey Jensen, and that's going to prompt good old counterspell, a Tempest one too, from Brian Braun-Duin. Let's see if William wants to fight or if he can. We know those Spell Pierces are not going to get the job done here. He's only got 2 available mana, and BBD has 5 to pay if he wants. So those aren't going to do it. But, he might have something else that we haven't seen yet in his hand.
The other thing that's interesting, though, is BBD had only 4 cards in hand before this counterspell. So Huey was probably he probably correctly divined that because BBD was letting resolve kind of everything, he doesn't have a glut of counterspells in hand, so he probably has access to 2. 2 would be the most likely number. 1 would be very unlucky, but possible. And 2 would be, so this is why he doesn't fight, is all this open mana for Spell Pierce.
Ooh, here's Snapcaster Mage, though, for Brian Braun-Duin. What is he going to target? A Brainstorm, maybe?
Yeah, well, it's the only instance, so I would hope he targets Brainstorm. Oh, technically Counterspell, but that would not be the best. So what's interesting here is that this is actually going to...
Spell Pierce now?
Well, this is actually really interesting, and I feel advanced play if he plays Spell Pierce here. No, Flusterstorm, okay.
Sure.
He just doesn't want BBD to be able to sort his hand. If he wanted to, he could have played Spell Pierce, forcing BBD to crack his fetch land, and then not get the shuffle effect. But the Flusterstorm just neatly deals with the Brainstorm.
Yeah, and remember, there was a Show and Tell plus a Counterspell plus a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, there
so
were a ton of
spells. Count
spells.
was 4, so yeah.
Yeah, more than enough to counter. But it's really, for me, it was really interesting.
Surgical Extraction here. Yeah, so he's going to go for the Show and Tell. Now, you talked about this earlier, and you said if he can Surgical away his Show and Tells and his Sneak Attacks, it can be really tough for Jensen to put together a win.
Yeah, so Sneak Attack has some advantages that Show and Tell doesn't. So the main advantage that Sneak Attack has is that it's a red card. So Pyroblast cannot target it, but Pyroblast can target any other counter. But it can't, say, counter Flusterstorm. So yeah, this is actually but it is more expensive. That's the biggest drawback. It takes a turn to set up, but that's not really relevant since BBD probably doesn't have much of an answer to a Sneak Attack in play. The Council's Judgment would be it if he decided to keep it. There's also Disenchant, but I don't think these are cards you want in this matchup. So yeah, I think here BBD is advantage, but not by that much because Huey's hand is just more stocked, and the clock is not that fast, so it's actually really close.
But his hand also doesn't do anything.
Sure, right.
Right, he needs to find action, and he has no card draw going, and he has no, actual. So it's interesting because, he just drew another Griselbrand, Eduardo. So that wasn't what he wanted to see.
No, and you can't hard count. Wait.
I was going to ask you, is there...
There is a world.
Okay, because I don't think he has 15 mana sources in the deck.
No. Emrakul he can't.
I know. I'm actually, saying that one I don't think is on the table, right?
Okay, it's technically possible to either cast Griselbrand or Emrakul.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen. So Griselbrand requires 4 Lotus Petals.
You mean all 4 Lotus Petals?
Yeah, it's quadruple black.
Okay. Now, what about Emrakul? He can make 15 mana.
So you can go with all 6 islands, Volcanics and islands. You can go with 3 Ancient Tombs. So up to 12, and then you can go City of Traders up to 14, and then either a petal or another city. Easy. Let's put it this way: I've never seen it happen.
Yeah,
I can easily say I will never see it happen.
Right, that is not going to happen.
Although
Sneak Attack is still very much a thing here.
He has a petal.
So we have 2 petals.
Yes.
All right. Well, here's Portent for Brian Braun-Duin.
We'll
wait until the 3rd petal before we start getting excited.
Yeah. Also, BBD is going to ruin our fun and play counterspell. So.
Yeah. How dare he?
I think if your opponent hardcast Griselbrand, it should just resolve. It's fine.
I agree. Should be uncounterable like Emrakul is, but alas, it does not say that on it. So here's a Snapcaster Mage now starting to do seriously good work, by the way. Jensen's down to 7. That is a very real clock. And Jensen just drew a Force of Will for the turn. So once again, all reactive cards and Griselbrands in hand. Yeah. He really needs to find it, and he's only going to have another few turns to do so.
Yeah, and now BBD had also turns to draw counter magic, and the clock.
Which he did.
Yeah. And okay, the clock wasn't that fast. That's true, but it remained a clock, and now it's becoming relevant.
There's Emrakul off the top, of course.
Right. Well, this is why you wouldn't want to play this deck.
Yes. This is the downside, right?
Yes. So you do have access to 4 brainstorms, so it's not so bad. But you have all these combo pieces, and if you draw like only one half, it's pretty bad. Show and tell multiples are okay for force, but yeah, that's the biggest downside to the show and tell deck. Very powerful, very fast, and plays a lot of soul lands. But at the same time, well, you can draw these Grizzlebrands and uncastable Emrakul's. Of course, barring ludicrousness.
All right, there's a Pyroblast for the Brainstorm that Jensen just found with his draw step. And Jensen says, I don't have time. I'm going to have to protect this this Brainstorm. I need to see these cards. I'm going to have to use a Force of Will right now. Brian can further fight. He's got another Pyroblast in his hand.
Yeah, and a Force of Will as well.
And a Force. So if he wants, he can just fight this one out and just leave Jensen at the mercy of the top of his library.
Yeah.
Which seems reasonable. Or he can say, all right, fine, but I'll just counter whatever you find.
I think this is a reasonable line from BBD. Like, the Force of Will, the fact that it costs 1 life is actually pretty relevant here since Willie's clock has gone.
Turn clock, yeah.
It went from 3 turns to 2. So now Huey has to basically get there next turn. And the second Power Blast here is pretty strong. I would say, like, BBD with the Force in hand is very far ahead with the way this played out.
There's Flusterstorm now for Jensen. And he's counting up the storm. He's just trying to tap out BBD, it looks like.
Yeah, let's see. There's 1,
BBD
2, 3,
says
4.
Sure.
I don't think he could actually... He could pay, you're right. But, yeah, it would not be a wise decision in my view. Okay, here's Flusterstorm. Well, definitely...
And then Flusterstorm right back at you.
Yeah.
And that is going to mean a very short clock. This Snapcaster Mage is going to hit William Jensen down to 2. And he's going to have 1 draw step.
Yeah. And like
but,
now that
things, and there's a Ponder even for BBD.
Yeah, but if BBD would not have pondered here if the Force of Will, if there was no other blue card for Force of Will because he knows about the spell pierces.
Right.
So and the Snapcaster Mage will be more than sufficient to get there. So yeah, this is over because BBD's plan is to just watch Huey scoop his cards. But if Huey had a relevant card like a sneak attack, he could have just forced it and paid for any spell pierces.
So that's going to even things up there. Brian Braun-Duin and William Huey Jensen even at 1 game apiece. You can see on our first table there, that would be our standard table, Owen Turtenwald versus Frank Skarren. They're even at a game apiece as well. So we've got a proper slugfest here in the middle of the day here on day number 1. I'm loving this.
Yeah. Wow, okay, so this...
So we're just... jumping in here into Reed Duke versus Seth Manfield to see what's going on with that. We may still be getting the life totals updated. We'll let you know when that happens just to confirm it.
Okay.
Though it does look like it may be the case because Reed just went from 9 to 6 after that attack. So he's actually might be already updated for us. There's scavenging news on the battlefield and a Tarmogoyf. It looks like they're kind of trying to race here.
Yeah. This is actually, there's a lot of information to unpack here. So let's do the board state first. Unlike game 1, you can notice that Reed's mana is untouched, and that's a really big difference. So, there's only a Field of Ruin in the graveyard, but basically that means that Reed basically could cast all his spells, so the game becomes a lot more fair.
Yeah, and he certainly has done so, though at the moment, Seth is trying to take the tempo game to Duke here. He's going to use a Cryptic Command to draw a card and keep that entire attack step at bay. Reed has Inquisition of Kozilek to take away a Path to Exile, but he's going to leave Seth with a Jace, Architect Unbound, as well as a Gideon Jura.
Yeah.
Wow, 2 powerful Planeswalkers in hand for Seth, but he will not have access to that Path to Exile thanks to the Inquisition.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty interesting sequence because Reed will board in Lingering Souls, but outside of Lingering Souls, Vendilion Clique is basically free because Reed won't keep in removal spells for the most part. So this Vendilion Clique, outside of the Spirit tokens, is just going to town. That said,
it really is here, by the way. Reed's at 3 now.
Yeah. But there is scavenging news, so it's not as bad as it looks for Reed. There are a bunch of creatures in Reed's graveyard, so he can both make the ooze large and present a larger threat. And also, scavenging ooze can prevent Seth from using a Snapcaster Mage. Although in this scenario, there's only 2 green sources, so it's actually pretty hard because if Reed wants to keep Seth off Snapcaster Mage, which doesn't appear to be
here's
necessary.
a supreme verdict now for Seth Manfield.
Yeah.
He's just going to slam it on the table, forcing Reed to use his 2 green sources just to get to 5 life.
Yeah.
but he's going to lose his board. Now, this is interesting, though, because the Vendilion Clique also, of course, will be swept away with this Supreme Verdict, meaning that while Seth got very, very close to finishing off Reed, he's not going to quite be able to do it, at least not with the Clique.
Yeah, and he realizes as well that by playing Ivor Walker, it would die too fast while having frets on the board. So it's better for Seth feels that it's better to do this Verdict. Gideon Jura can become a 6/6 anyways, so 5 life is low enough.
They also work quite well together. It's hard to get Jace Architect of Thought off the battlefield if Jace is plussing.
Yes.
And then, of course, Gideon can come down and just snap off anything that did attempt to do so.
Yeah. Like any Walker that defends itself in combination with another is usually an extremely powerful combination.
Mm-hmm.
This deck uses the Planeswalker rule change to play multiple Gideons. So, have you had Jura and Ally of Zendikar together?
No,
that's pretty good.
That's nasty. I have not had that.
Yeah, and you can Gideon of the Trials, and the other Gideon stops you from losing. It's actually fun.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so here, I actually did that to survive in one of my games because I was
on your stream? Or?
Yeah.
Nice.
My opponent could kill Gideon of the Trials and put me below, but the Jura would work.
So here's Jace Architect of Thought now for Seth Manfield. He's just going to immediately minus and do, we call that the mini Factor Fiction 3 cards. And they're going to get split up into 2 different piles. And then Seth is going to choose which one he'd like to put in his hand. The rest are going to go on the bottom of his library. And a decent little piles here. There's a Path, as well as what could be a pretty important land, a Celestial Colonnade. That's a spell. That's a land that he can use to actually finish off the game. Yes. And then I don't know how good is Rest in Peace right here. It doesn't really seem to be doing a ton against Reed, but I don't know.
Okay, so Rest in Peace in this matchup is extraordinarily strong. Mm-hmm. Think about Reed's frets.
Is it good right now? There's no board state.
Right, but it stops any non-Death Shadow top decks. It makes Traverse awful. Tarmogoyf is a 0/1. Scavenging Ooze remains a 2/2. And Grimflayer remains a 2/2. It does stack the deck at least. So
by the way, you saw how much Reed respected the Celestial Colonnade. He put it in its own pile.
Yeah, that's a really tough one.
And Seth was like, I don't even need it, bro. I'm just going to kill you with these.
Yeah. I think based on the pile that Seth got, so by the way, Seth played the Jace out here. He could have gone for the Frode with the Gideon Jura, but he was worried about Reed top decking Lingering Souls. So he just figured, well, I'll just play this Jace, get value now while there's no creatures, so I can easily get value if it would die. Right, so here's Inquisition of Kozilek, right? And this is really...
That's the Brick Cities.
Yeah, this game is basically over. I would like to say better. I would like to say Reed has a chance, but this game is...
Yeah,
is
the Gideon Jura and the Supreme Verdict are so powerful against some of the stuff that Reed's going to try to do. Okay. Well, no, that doesn't work either, does it? A bunch of 1/1 flyers against Jace Architect of Thought.
Jace plus, Gideon plus.
Start smashing.
Well, what happens then is Reed will attack,
go to 0.
He'll flashback Lingering Souls, and then you Supreme Verdict, and then you win. Yeah. And he also has Detention Sphere if he prefers doing that. Whatever you feel is best.
Yeah, Reed's going to have a hard time finding actual answers for Gideon Jura in creature form.
I can look at Reed's list. There's just nothing.
There's nothing, right?
Right. He could draw Maelstrom Pulse. That is the one card that let this game go on. But
look at this, though. Detention Sphere to kill all the tokens from Seth.
Yeah.
Why wait a turn when you can kill your opponent right now? That's an attack for 6, and that's lethal. Yeah. And that's Seth Manfield winning his match 2-0 over Reed Duke. And they are now 1 match away from winning the round here. Yeah. Is it going to be Frank Skarren? Maybe. It could be Brian Braun-Duin, but they both have to win Game 3s against Owen Turtenwald and William Huey-Jensen, respectively. Oh, and look at this. We've got Jensen with Grizzlebrand on the battlefield. He's already drawn 7 and is now in his discard step.
Do you need my expert analysis to tell you who's a favorite at this
No, I think I know where the advantage bar is here, Eduardo. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think.
So what happened? Is there a show and tell in the yard? Yeah, there it is right there.
And BBD
Lotus
was
Petal.
tapped out. And
who's having fun? Turn 2 Grizzlebrand, kiddos.
Yeah, well, this is what happens is Lotus Petals and the Soul Lands, when you're on the play, allow you to cast a turn 2 show and tell. And if BBD just didn't have a 1-mana answer, then he's just going to go for Portent, and he didn't have Force. You can see the Power Blast in hand. I don't know if he had it in his opening hand, but there's definitely an argument for passing on turn 1, unless you really need to fire off that Portent. That was actually probably a really tough call if you had both. You do want to develop, but yeah, if he really needed a land, then I can understand the play. But yeah, for sure, Huey from turn 3 can show intel, and from turn 2 he needs help. But there are 9 copies of cards that allow him to do it from turn 2, so it's a really tough call there. Yeah.
Of course, the downside here from BBD is even if he has an answer for Griselbrand, often the damage is done, right? Like, let's say he had, he had set up a Terminus or whatever, he pathed it or something. It's just like Jensen's going to be fully stocked on cards, and he's going to have his pick of the litter as well. And he may well also just have Force of Will or a bunch of ways to protect his Griselbrand at this point anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one should be in the books.
Yeah, just trust.
Look at this. Jensen draws his card for the turn and just immediately draws 7 with Griselbrand. I love that.
Yeah, this is over. Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure we're going to see...
Look at his hand! It's huge. Look at that. Even Jensen can barely hold that many cards.
I'm not that impressed. I've had a bigger hand from Griselbrand before. Well, I don't know what my limit is, but 35 might be.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, but it's fine. I mean, yeah, here, like... He's just going to, like, stack it. Look at
that. Look at it. Triple Force of Will.
Quads.
He has all of them. Oh, my God.
Quad Force of Will. Yeah,
Quad Force of Will.
Yeah, so, just play out the Lotus Petal.
Somehow?
It's fine. Just play out the Force of Will, the Lotus Petal, play out the Ancient Tomb, discard some cards that are not Force of Will and counter spells, and then you're good to go.
And then the game shall end shortly thereafter.
Yeah. I don't think he minds having 2 extra Gristlebrands. It's interesting that he decided to play Volcanic over Ancient Tomb. I believe it's for the ability in case so when you have Gristlebrand in play and all this happens, you're basically like 99% to win. The question is, how do you make sure you're 100? And what Huey's doing here is he's just playing a second red source in case he needs to double Pyroblast down the line.
Sure.
And has as much, because see, he can Lightning Bolt. I think that's a Lightning Bolt. He can Lightning Bolt. Yeah, yes. Double Spell Pierce and double Force of Will.
That's his hand.
Yeah, he doesn't need the Ancient Tomb, so that's why he doesn't keep it. Is like the damage is done. But mostly like Seth Manfield. At this point, he's basically won. It's just a question of time.
Well, that's exciting stuff for us. Oh, it's actually really exciting for the PGO because look what happened on our initial match. Owen Turtenwald defeats Frank Skarren, looks down at his opponent, or excuse me, at his teammate, William Huey-Jensen, and says, "How's it going?" And he's like, "I just drew 14 cards. My hand is literally 4 Force of Wills, a Lightning Bolt, and a Spell Pierce. How are you doing over there?"
I don't think he'd be quite that conversationalist. He'd probably just show his hand, and Owen would be like, "Okay."
Yeah, well, Owen would probably be like, "I'm going to go get us lunch. What do you want?" Because we're winning this one.
The one thing about them as a team is they almost never concede.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and the second thing is they usually always stay around and play it out with everybody on the team. And I think that's just part of their philosophy, right? Like, while the game's on, the game's on.
Sure.
Everybody's involved, you get involved.
Yeah. I mean, here they have to. Like, Jensen has to win this match to finish things off. If Brian came up with some miraculous comeback that really isn't possible, then, that would change things. But as it sits, 2 more attack steps with the Grizzle Dad, and this one should just be in the books here for Peach Garden Oath, lining up a 5-0 start here at GP Santa Clara.
Yeah, so by the way, just a micro thing here. William doesn't draw cards because his hand is perfect. So he's going to wait until BBD's turn to draw cards so that he doesn't have to discard to hand size.
If I were him, I would snap off 14, not 7. I would say in response to the first activation, I draw 7 more because I want that many cards in my hand.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter here. Like, he
that
kept
was a joke, Eduardo.
Yeah, no.
This is where you laugh.
Sorry.
You should not. There we go. And that's the match going to Peach.
It was a Lightning Bolt. That was
that was it? That was the winner?
Yeah, I was like, none of this matters because there's a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, it's funny. William Huey-Jensen shows up with some Lightning Bolt deck and wins the game.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's going to do it for that round. That was Peach Garden Oath taking down Frank Skarren, Seth Manfield, and Brian Braun-Duin. It turns out when all 3 of your players are ranked in the top 25 pro rankings, you get to win more often than when only 2.
By the way, the thing I like the most about this is the highest ranked player won each of their matches.
Yeah, that's true. So justice was served. All right, we've got a short commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll have more live Magic and recorded Magic for you here from GP Santa Clara.